Okay. I think we have one more presentation for the day.
Yes.
And we're ready.
Okay. New commissioners, I am Corin Jagnow, and I'm the chief of the Research and Education Division. And Bureau Director for I&E, Steve Smith, just asked me to introduce our next presenter. So this is Derek Stoner. He is our new R3 coordinator. He's been with the agency for about 6 months. And so, as you probably can see on your agenda, R3 stands for Hunter Recruitment, Retention, and Reactivation. So Derek is just going to highlight some of the programs that we have and that he's starting in the 6 months that he's been here. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to present this program to you today. I'm looking forward to sharing with you, as Corin said, an update on the progress of R3 in Pennsylvania, and I'm going to share with you in these slides some of the upcoming projects that we have in place and ready to go for the remainder of the hunting year. So as you all know, of course, Pennsylvania has a tremendously strong hunting heritage, going back to the founding, of course, of the Game Commission in 1895. And in the subsequent 123 years, we built an incredible tradition of hunting in the state, so much so that, as we all know, in deer hunting season, it's a major opportunity for families to get a field, and we have so many people that consider that first Monday after Thanksgiving to be an official holiday. And so we have a lot to be proud of and thankful for in our state. And I like to start out a presentation like this, putting Pennsylvania in proper perspective nationally. So looking at how our state ranks in terms of harvest and hunter numbers on a national level. So we have the highest overall turkey harvest, highest number of turkey hunters, highest number of bear hunters. We're in the top 5 for total antlered buck harvest, number 2 for antlerless harvest, and second highest total number of hunters. So I know you all heard earlier today about the exciting recognition for our deer management plan, our deer management team, being recognized by the Quality Deer Management Association as the top agency. We have a really, really fantastic overall game management plan. I think these figures here speak well to the fact that Pennsylvania hunting is very strong. We rank very highly nationally. And when you see that second highest total number of hunters, interesting way to look at this is if the current number of hunters nationwide is stated to be somewhere in the realm of 11 to 12 million hunters. Our number of hunters make up 78% of the nationwide total. And so we have a significant standing in terms of the number of hunters that are contributing to that total on a nationwide level. So we're going to travel back to a decade ago looking at hunter numbers and thinking about what has changed in this past decade. So back in 2007, 2008, for the resident adult general license category, we had 670,000 licenses sold, 52,000 non-resident adult general licenses, and 40,000 junior licenses. So these are what we might consider the big 3 license categories. So of a general license that's purchased by an adult or junior, these are the top 3 categories. Now look at how this compares to the most recent license year, 2017, 2018. We had 587,000 resident, 46,000 non-resident, and 22,000 junior licenses. These, just to note, of course, are rounded to the nearest 1,000. They're not exact, but we just rounded them to nearest 1,000 for expediency's sake. So we've got a 13% decrease in the adult resident licenses sold in the past decade, 12% decrease in non-resident licenses, and a 45% decrease in junior licenses sold. And so to look at this past decade of change and put it in perspective, we have 107,000 less licensed buyers in these 3 basic categories. So a 14% decline across these 3 categories that make up the majority of our general license purchases. So over the past decade, 10 out of 23 license category sales have decreased, and the total total junior license sales, the combination of resident and non-resident, those sales are down 53%. So it's important, though, to look on the bright side and look on the other hand here. not all categories of licenses and hunter numbers are decreasing. We have some notable growth and opportunity to expand in certain categories of hunting in the state of Pennsylvania. Our senior combo licenses, resident archery, resident bear, special wild turkey, and the category of female hunters is something of note. We have seen in the past decade a 2% increase in female hunters in the adult category, and in the junior category for females, we've seen an increase of nearly 7%. So that is a really important thing to note, because on a nationwide perspective, when we look at this past decade and what has changed, we've seen many surveys show that females are increasingly participating in hunting at a much higher rate than in prior decades of surveys. We see archery is expanding nationwide, particularly with the legalization of crossbows for hunting in many archery seasons. So we have a lot of growth in those categories. You might say, well, the bear population is doing well. The increase in sales of bear licenses might speak to that fact. And so we have a lot of growth, and these trends are really important to consider as we're looking at how we can make some plans in the future in regards to recruitment, retention, and reactivation. So this, this graph right here, this chart, shows the past decade of Pennsylvania resident hunting licenses sold per year by age. So you see a lot of colors there, but looking at 2009 to 2018, what I want to point out first of all, the bright red line, it looks really low and really scary, of course. That represents the past month of license sales for the 2018-2019 license sale year. Of course, that just started barely a month ago. And so if you look at the graph and the general trend line, you can see that each year, when you look at the different age categories, the peak of junior license sales occurs right around age 15. And then you have a significant drop-off once you get into hunters in their 20s through early 30s. And then it starts to climb once we get into the decade of 40s for the hunters. And we had, back in 2009, the average age, the age at which we had the most hunters participating was 47. And now in the most current or most recent full license year of 2017, that number has dropped to 57, or that age has increased, I should say, to 57. So the trend line is moving to the right. Our hunters are getting older, and we have a very strong cohort effect here, where we're looking at the fact that that generation of hunters, the ones that probably grew up hunting out their back door, hunting is a really important part of their tradition growing up. We see that as these hunters are aging, the license sales are tracking and trending along with them. When we look at the most recent decade, or sorry, the most recent year here, and the trend line, it's simply showing that our license sales by age are tracking towards the right, and we do not have any change in terms of a stronger, younger generation of new license buyers supporting the shift in ages towards the right. So it's important to put this in national perspective. So look at that graph there. This graph here was just released last week from the big report called The Future of Hunting and Fishing. It was commissioned by the Council to Advance Hunting and Shooting Sports, and a company called Chase & Chase Consulting is the group that put this together. And so this is showing the percentage of the U.S. population that buys a hunting license, and it's done by age. And so we just looked at a chart that was showing license sales by age. And so right here, we're looking at that same trend. So the darker blue here is the more recent years. This goes up through 2016. The lighter, more faded blue is going all the way back to the year 2000. And so once again, in those teen years, junior license buyers in the 15, 16, 17-year-old category are very active license buyers, very active hunting participants. And then we see the a drop-off in participation once they reach their 20s, and it tends to stay kind of at a lower level through the 30s, maybe as hunters are starting families. And then once they get into their 40s, the number of the percentage of actively participating hunters starts to grow again. And right around the early 50s, we tend to see a peak. And so what's important to look at is, in a nationwide perspective, less than 2.5% of the US population is a hunter. When this study also looked at and considered fishing, the rates of participation in fishing are higher, generally almost double in many cases. Up to 5 or 6% of the US population is actively fishing and buying a fishing license. And so this graph shows us that the trends that we see in hunting as it relates to the topic of R3 are nationwide, they're very significant, and they're very important to address in terms of how we can support the funding model that we have set up for hunting as it relates to hunting license purchases. So looking at Pennsylvania, returning to our state here and what has worked well traditionally in terms of recruitment. So the traditional youth recruitment program would be our hunter-trapper education model. So every year we have more than 25,000 students graduate from hunter-trapper education programs across the state. We've got a volunteer team of almost 2,000 instructors, and the majority of students are under the age of 18. We've got events like junior pheasant hunts, youth field days, special youth seasons, and the National Archery in the Schools program that continue to introduce young hunters to high-quality hunting and target shooting experiences. So some of these opportunities are for young hunters, their first introduction to hunting. And in many cases, however, it's continuing something that they started at home. So they may have gotten introduced to hunting while going to field with their parents and other family members, and then they take that interest and they expand it to participation in youth field days, the special youth seasons, maybe the hunter education challenge that takes place each year up at Scotia Range. Those are the types of opportunities that we have available for youth, and they're very strong and continue to enroll many thousands of youth statewide year after year. The youth seasons that we mentioned are really, really important, especially for families that like to get a field. As Corin said, our Bureau Director, Steve Smith, could not join us today. This is a photograph of him just this past spring with his son Joel. Joel tagged out on a nice mature gobbler on the Youth Day, which, as you all know, occurs the Saturday before the opener for the regular spring gobbler season. So he bagged a gobbler on April 21st, and then on May 5th, he bagged his second gobbler using that special second spring gobbler license that is available. As we said, the traditional model of hunting in most cases is considered to be hunters that grew up with hunting in their family. They learned from their parents, they learned from a relative, someone who took them under the wing, mentored them, and got them in the field. This photograph here shows Emily Cantner and her father hunting turkeys together in May up in McKean County. Emily started at age 12 hunting turkeys and deer and small game across the state, and she is a great example of the millennial generation, so people in their early 20s through late 30s that are the largest generation we've ever had in the United States. And she had her hunting experience documented this spring by Northwoods Collective, which is a leading media company that works to promote R3 initiatives nationwide. So, the recruitment category, what's next? The way that we're looking at moving forward with recruiting builds upon the strong model that we already have in place for youth. We're looking to have a bigger focus on mentoring new first-generation adult hunters. As I just mentioned, that millennial generation, considered to be from 22 to 37 years old, comprises more than 33 million individuals, the largest generation in U.S. history. So there's a great interest in the locavore movement, simply meaning people are interested in wild game meat as a way to know where their protein source comes from. and this is highly desired by a large audience of potential new hunters. So we've got two new primary initiatives that address this category of adult first-generation hunters: the National Hunter Mentor Program and Field to Fork. The National Hunter Mentor Program was launched this past spring in March with 7 states participating in the Midwest and West. It's a partnership of Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever with the International Hunter Education Association. So you could look at this essentially as a advanced hunter education training opportunity to take someone who's a hunter education instructor or an agency staff member, get them properly trained in how to take someone afield, give them the tools that are going to help them be a high-quality, successful mentor, and then match them up with someone who's a first-generation or first-time hunter. So the list here that as part of this training, it says, why a hunter mentor training program? This is addressing some really important needs of the first-time adult hunter. So they might prefer learning alone compared to being in a classroom setting. We hear that a lot in server adults. Maybe the traditional hunter-trapper education program experience is a little different for them. They might be the only adult in a class full of school children, and they're looking for something different. So they might be uncomfortable with that traditional classroom audience. They have a different pace that they like to work at. Their schedules are a little too busy to accommodate weekend workshops. And probably most importantly, the reason that this program really was created is because state agencies nationwide get hundreds of inquiries each year from people, especially adults, that want to learn how to hunt. And we've got a lot of programs in place nationwide that address how to get youth into hunting, and much less in terms of offerings for adults. So this diagram here, the outdoor recreation adoption model, is really the heart of hunter recruitment, retention, and reactivation. So this diagram has been around for quite a number of years, and this applies to really any interest, but particularly any outdoor interest. So whether you're into fishing or kayaking or mountain biking or camping or hunting, most of us move through this model as a participant, and we may move out of the participant role if something comes up in our life that keeps us from participating at the same level. And so we have a lot of people that get recruited, they get interested in hunting, they go through that trial period, they reach a decision to continue, and then they might not have the support to continue. So they might lapse, they might drop their hunting license, and then maybe somebody else gives them an opportunity to go afield again, they get reactivated, and perhaps they stay in, they stay out. What is really at the focal point now of R3 is identifying why people would come in and out of participation as a hunter or an angler or any other outdoor activity. And so a lot of states now are looking at what is called churn, so the rate at which participants cycle in and out of that activity. And so in many states, Pennsylvania included, the churn rate in licensed buyers is 30 to 40%. So how many of you in the past 5 years have bought a hunting license every single year over the past 5 years? Raise your hand, please. Thank you. How many over the past decade have probably bought one every year, right? So believe it or not, there's a lot of people, a significant percentage, 30 to 40% nationwide, that cycle in and out of being an active license buyer. So they might still say, oh, I'm a hunter, I'm an angler, but they don't buy a license every year. So imagine if we have in Pennsylvania 700,000, 800,000 plus hunter or license buyers in a given year. What if 30% of them just choose to not buy a license that year? It's gonna change the statistics. And on the other hand, what if everybody bought one every year? Then you'd see a very different result in your license sales and the funding coming in. So churn is a really important thing to consider in the category of R3. So the next program that we're looking at in terms of how it may affect and boost this recruitment category is called Field to Fork. And so Field to Fork is mentored deer hunting for adults. The first Field to Fork course was held in fall 2016, so it's very new. It's a partnership between the Quality Deer Management Association, state agencies, and other conservation groups. The inaugural programs will be held this fall in Pennsylvania, in Indiana County and Chester County. So we're looking at those counties being closer to major metropolitan areas, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. And we're going to, with QDMA being the partner on this and their experience with the program, we're going to help first-generation adult hunters go through the process of learning to hunt. And if they're successful and they harvest a deer, help them process their own deer. That's the key focus of the program. The program provides an overall very solid start in hunting for adults, and if they have no prior hunting experience, it's going to get them along the path to being a successful and capable deer hunter. The pheasant program in Pennsylvania, of course, is very critical for hunter retention. Going back several decades, we still had wild pheasants. I remember on our family farm in Lancaster County where I live, we were still seeing wild pheasants through the early 1990s. And somewhere in the past couple decades, the wild pheasants faded out, and our pheasant propagation program really ramped up to full strength as we needed to replace the loss of wild pheasants. So the pheasant hunting program is a really critical part of the hunting season each year for many thousands of hunters across the state. The new junior pheasant permit is free, and it's going to allow for a better understanding of youth participation as hunting season. So the Junior Pheasant Hunt program will be expanded and marketed to reach a wider audience of new youth hunters. We identified the fact that the overall number of spaces available, or the capacity of the junior pheasant hunts in the past couple of years has been less than, they've been reaching less than 70%. And so there's room to accommodate more youth in these pheasant hunts through better marketing and reaching new youth hunters. And for this season, we're going to make sure that videos, photos, and stories will be shared with the Pennsylvania hunting community and our agency to showcase the importance of this program for providing new hunter opportunities for youth. In the category of retaining, how can we keep customers active? This is a critical one, but very challenging. On the national level, a lot of agencies and organizations are trying to figure out how can you keep these folks active, especially if they're in that category where they are on the verge of cycling out for some reason. So having special senior licenses and junior licenses and combo licenses are really important to fit the needs of these demographics. Offering intermediate and advanced level classes and workshops may help people build their skills, build their confidence, and boost their success. And many states have looked at ways in which to offer that kind of next level experience to help people progress, particularly if they do not have a mentor to assist them along the way. An example of this is a program called Time for Turkeys. We offered this spring in Chester County as a trial. This might be able to be offered statewide and partner with National Wild Turkey Federation. This type of program has seen success in other states where you might have a lot of people that are newer to turkey hunting or deer hunting or pheasant hunting, whatever type of hunt and game species that they're seeking to participate in. You can offer them an opportunity to build their skills, boost that confidence, and help them get a field through this type of program offering. In the category of reactivation, the question might be, how can we bring back inactive customers? So going back to that topic of the category of churn, those hunters that cycle in and out of being a regular hunting license buyer, we can survey them to find out what obstacles are keeping them from buying a license every year. And in many cases, it's the convenience factor. So how many of you have hunted or fished in another state and been able to buy a license online and have it on your smartphone, digital device, or printed immediately? So we're all familiar with those types of opportunities, and because most of our society's purchasing has shifted to online opportunities, that's something important to address, is that a lot has changed in the past decade, and we can assist hunters by addressing the convenience factor, simplifying license buying process, streamlining regulations where possible. An example of this would be the shooting range permit. So this is something that's newer to the agency. It may be bought online and printed at home. You can also buy it through a vendor in person, but it's an opportunity to buy that permit online, print it out, and you can go to the local game commission shooting range right away that day, without having to go in person and find a licensed vendor that's open. So that type of convenience is very important to our hunters. We've discovered that through focus groups, learning more about their buying habits and their need for instant gratification in many cases. If they want to go shoot, they need to go shoot and sight in their guns. They want to be able to do that and make sure they're properly permitted to do so. So as an agency, we can answer the call to recruit, retain, and reactivate hunters in Pennsylvania. It's certainly going to be a team effort. As I mentioned and showed at the start with those statistics, we're not alone. This is a nationwide effort. Back in May, there was the first ever National R3 Symposium. It was held in Lincoln, Nebraska. It was put together by the Council to Advance Hunting and Shooting Sports. There were over 330 professionals from across the nation representing agencies, industry, the hunting, fishing, and shooting sports industry, and conservation groups. And so that event brought together the key players in the R3 effort, and it really solidifies everybody's belief that the R3 effort is absolutely critical to all of us, and it's going to take an active team effort to identify ways that we can keep hunting participants active and purchasing licenses and supporting that North American model of conservation funding. So I appreciate the opportunity to present today, and if anybody has any questions right now, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Brian?
You know, we noticed the female population in the hunting category going up. Is there a relationship or any relationship to the split family? I mean, you're seeing males go down in the family component, and you know, females are now having to take that part of it over. Are we seeing that as any factor?
Okay, I'm not sure the exact answer to that in terms of, you know, like surveys stating why younger females would be participating. However, I can address one fact that was a little bit more than anecdotal, because many states saw that when movies like The Hunger Games and these archery-themed movies that targeted the youth or the young female demographic, when they came out, there was a major boost in the sales of archery equipment and a major boost in license purchases by young females. But I'll defer to Corin if she has any information in regards to the young female participation. So, let's see.
Change of culture for, you know, hunting being an acceptable activity for both boys and girls, and then those girls that started off, maybe now they're in their 30s and 40s. So we still see a very, very low proportion of women over the age of 50. So most of the women who are hunting are younger women. I do have some numbers about that. So basically at age 15, there's about 25% of our hunters are girls, whereas at age 75, it's only about 1%. So a lot of it is that it's just, you know, changing cultural norms. One thing within the family that could be as simple as people don't have as large families anymore, and if they don't have a son, they may take their daughters, whereas before, if they had both, maybe they would go and take their sons, that sort of thing. But it definitely seems to be more of a phenomenon of young women just being recruited into the sport as girls, and now they're just kind of moving through, and they're a little older, and they're able to buy adult licenses.
What about archery in the schools? Are we seeing any kind of correlation between that program and people coming on board to hunt?
That's an excellent question. Yeah, I listed that under that traditional model of youth activities. However, there's been plenty of studies nationwide that have shown that participation in archery in the schools or out of the schools, if it's a 4-H archery program, whatnot, there's a lot of archery-focused programs out there. They do not necessarily have a strong correlation to participation in bow hunting, because generally the curriculum doesn't focus on bow hunting. The students that already are avid bow hunters are more likely to participate in archery in the schools because it helps them become a better archer, and it's a natural fit for them. And so in most cases, states or state agencies that are really pushing a curriculum like National Archery in the schools are finding that that doesn't necessarily result in a boost in the number of youth bow hunters, if that makes sense. So
Too bad, because if you go
is
to
that how
those,
you
if you
understand?
go to those archery hunts, there are tons and tons of
Right.
youth and
Right.
show up. Boy, if there was just a way to figure that one
So
out.
that's something that we're considering, is how we might better market the hunting opportunity to our tens of thousands of Archery in the Schools participants
Go to
in the
3D
state.
targets.
We've got one of the largest states for Archery in the Schools. However, what we've discovered already is that most of those students already have the network, or if they're hunting already, they already have a network in place to hunt.
Right.
The challenge is, how do you help all the others that are doing archery but not bow hunting? How do you help them get out in the field and hunt?
Right.
That's the trick or the challenge. And in most cases, you would say it would have to be some type of mentored hunting opportunity. When we're up in State College and watching 800 or 900 students there shooting their bows for a day, you think, oh, wouldn't that be interesting to be able to take 800 or 900 kids deer hunting all at one time?
Well, so
That'd be
while
the
you were
challenge,
doing your
yeah.
presentation, Brian and
Yeah.
I were talking, and it just seems, we talk about going into the high schools, and one of the things that people always come to us and say is, kids are so busy, they
Yep.
have so much going on.
Right.
And I said to Brian, my kids graduated high school and everything stopped.
Yeah.
So let's hit them after they graduate high
Right.
school, and then they have the abilities, if they
Right.
want to go out in pairs or on their own, and
Right.
it just makes sense.
Right. Yeah, the mobility and the opportunity of younger adults, so post high school, is much better, and they're more able to participate in hunting. As Corin and I have discussed many times, the kids are not the decision makers. They don't have the authority to
Right.
to make a purchase, to buy a license, to say, hey, give me the car and go hunting, that type of thing. So there's a lot of challenges that have to do with society and our culture in general that limit the opportunity for many youth to get a field nowadays. And from an agency perspective, we may be able to offer a greater number of youth-focused hunts, but the scale is the challenge. So
Right.
it'd have to be. We're at about 22,000 youth licenses purchased now, and that 45% drop in resident youth licenses purchased. A big opportunity there, though, to make that trend go in the other direction and start to increase. If we can just figure out how better to connect programs like the Archery in the Schools to bow hunting, and that's a big challenge, and most states are looking at that as well. Yes, sir.
It seems to me, that the idea of what you just mentioned, scale. So in Pennsylvania, if, let's say we're at 600,000 general license buyers. If you wanted to move the needle 10%, we're talking 60,000 people.
Yep.
And so, in some of these states where the agency personnel go out and they mentor someone, that model is going to not move the needle an iota in Pennsylvania.
Right.
What we need, though, is a model where we train the trainer, essentially.
Right.
And we get some mentors out there beyond agency staff and HTE instructors that
Right.
just want to, see the sport continue, and they become the mentors. So I think that's one of the things we need to focus on, is how do we get the general hunter to become a mentor?
Sure.
The other thing that you mentioned, though, is these advanced classes, and I used to conduct successful turkey hunting
Right.
clinics for our hunters. And what happened is, early on, we had other instructors come, so they could become instructors, and we had nobody showing up at these classes. And they were a lot of effort. There was a trailer full of materials that came out there. We had instructors all over the place,
Right.
and 10 people that were interested in coming.
Right.
So I don't know what the other states are doing with this new program with NWTF for turkey hunters, but we need to figure out how to get them there. I mean, we can offer all the stuff we want. I mean, in fact, we pulled Successful Turkey back, and we now have it online.
Right.
So if we can't get them there, that's a problem. We
Right.
can't even lead the horse to the water,
Right. I agree. Well, to follow up on Commissioner Daly's comment about the mentoring and the need for scalability, the National Hunter Mentor Program is very well thought out and very wisely devised, because they're partnering with a media company called Powderhook, and Powderhook is based in Nebraska, and I met with the people that are the founders of the company when we were at the R3 Symposium in May. And so Powderhook has an application that will be on your smartphone, and will be able to connect certified mentors with interested mentees. And so the opportunity exists for each state agency through this hunter mentor program to have their staff trained and certified, and then to have regional staff, their hunter education instructors, and whoever they deem qualified for that role to be certified as a mentor. And then you're able to, scale that out in much the way that we have our standard hunter-trapper education classes for youth. So if you look at, as you just addressed that issue, if you look at the fact that we have, 600,000 plus active, regular, annual adult license buyers in the state, if we're able to certify 1,000 of them, 5,000, 10,000, if we're able to get the ones that are interested in being a mentor and being able to pass the tradition along and being able to take a fellow adult hunting, this is the model that will work in order to do that, because as we've seen time and again in this modern age, that ability for people to connect for a activity that they're interested in is really important. So this is almost like a way that you can take that old-fashioned model of, hey, I'm going to invite my friend, my neighbor, my buddy to go hunting. If you don't know of those people, if you're not connected with them already, this is going to take that person that's brand new, that has an interest in hunting, and be able to connect them with somebody who's willing to take them hunting as an adult. And so, like you said, it's a huge challenge, especially when you look at the scale of it. So Pennsylvania is in a great position. Going back to that early figure we presented, we're number 2 in hunter numbers. And in order to show a change, we have to make a major change. It's going to take a lot of effort across the board for the whole agency and our partners in order to make the numbers reverse from that steady decline and at least stabilize and then eventually grow. So. Yes, sir.
Just a general comment. Thank you, Derek. On the electronic getting your hunting license, I mean, we're second in hunting, but we got to be near the bottom of user-friendly as far as on your iPhone and everything. So just the last guy went, clicked, got the hunting license on my phone. From Pennsylvania, I thought I had to print it out. I printed it out, left it in the vehicle. When I got there, the conservation officer for the tag called me right up, what's your social security number, boom.
Right.
I think it would get more on your border, just a case in point for me. When I go to Walmart with my kids, they don't want to stand there.
Right.
By the way, Walmart counter people are not the game commission's friends. They complain about it all the time. The people that actually do the work, and everybody in line is bad-mouthing, so that would help. But I don't purchase bear license or second turkey tags, and generally I don't get them because when I ask my kids if they want to go hunting for bear, no, we'll never see a bear, and we don't participate in bear groups. So
Right.
if they could go online and do that, they would probably leverage me to buy them bear license at the
Yeah.
time. So just, if you can work with your group, and I don't know where the commission, we're all in the information age, so anything you can do with your work groups to improve that purchasing, I think you would get that person in and out buying more, and definitely the kids pressuring their parents to buy them more.
Right.
Because I know you forgo $100 of revenue from me,
Yeah.
because my kids, they don't want to stand there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of the opportunity to buy the license online, and then of course you wait till you have the license arrive in the mail. You need the hard copy. That's 7 to 10 days. When I asked our licensing team here what percentage of Pennsylvania hunters are buying their license online, and then waiting to get it in the mail, he said it's at 11%. So it's been growing about 1% a year or so since that option has been there. However, when you ask other state agencies where they have the license online option where it's immediately available, you have a digital copy your license, perhaps they have some other hard copy equivalent as well. Those states have more than 40% of their licenses bought annually online. And so it addresses that convenience factor, that instant gratification factor, the idea that many of our hunters literally buy their license a day or two before the opening of the gun season for deer, and they can't get it out the Walmart. There's a lot of reasons there where states are looking at that very seriously, and it's a really important thing to consider because it's
hope we can make
a reality.
on that. Thank you.
Sure.
So I have a question, just real quick. I don't see a lot of this in Pennsylvania, but I know that when I wanted to learn to go salmon fishing, I hired a guide.
Yeah.
And I went up to New York and I went salmon fishing. And the next year, I bought my license and I didn't need a guide.
right?
Or if I went out, the first time I went out elk hunting, I hired a guide. And I went out elk hunting and I learned a little bit about elk hunting. Something we don't see a lot in Pennsylvania. And I'm wondering if we're missing something there that may promote hunting, where someone that is interested but can't find the avenue to get there could
Right.
hire someone similar to that. Would that fall into a program that we could utilize?
Well, I know many of the Midwestern states are addressing that very issue by partnering with guides and outfitters to offer hunts for new hunters, not necessarily youth, but first-time hunters. So the state of Arkansas has a program where, since that state is so renowned for waterfowl hunting, they have great opportunities. They are introducing first-time hunters to waterfowl hunting through a guided, fully outfitted experience. And so they are finding that the people that are introduced to hunting that way are more likely to come back and be a regular license purchaser than those who get their license in the traditional model, have an interest in waterfowling, go out and try it on their own, don't have immediate success, and then they stop. And so that's certainly something to consider. Our state definitely doesn't have the high number of guides or outfitters, like you said, compared to a lot of other states, particularly in Midwest and Western areas. But that's very valid and important to consider, because it's a win-win. It's going to help out the guides and outfitters, connecting with new potential customers. For some people, that's something they might do every year. They might take a guided turkey hunt. They might utilize the services of a guide again and again. So that's certainly something I think is very important to consider, especially as it might partner well with our existing seasons for youth. And you could even pair it up nicely with something like the pheasant program. We've got 40 to 50 junior pheasant hunts each year. Perhaps we could offer an adult pheasant hunt opportunity. And they are offered by different groups, whether it's for handicap hunters or focusing on a certain group like women hunters. There's those opportunities for adults. But it's not easy to always think about ways to help the adults out, because we've been so focused on kids for so long, but it's absolutely critical to consider them as key customers in the future. Anybody else?
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.